A lot of what we know about Anthony Allen comes from the accounts of missionaries at the time, encountering this Black man and being kind of surprised by the life he was living here.
Well, I'm laughing because understanding the protocols of Hawaii, I could only imagine, I just wonder what kind of protocols did he have to go to,
Run, Mary, run, run, Martha, run, run, Mary, run, I say, you've got a right to the tree of life, you've got a right to the tree of life, yeah.
Aloha, my name is Akiemi Glenn, and I am the Executive Director of the Pōpolo Project here in Hawaii. I have an interest in this topic today because of the work that I do, and also because of my personal connection to this history. I was raised in Virginia, my family's from North Carolina, and the history of enslaved African people liberating themselves and enduring that institution is very important to me personally. Today, I live here in Hawaii, and I work as not only as an executive director of an organization, but also as a linguist. I have a background in indigenous language revitalization. I have a master's and PhD in linguistics from the University of Hawaii at Manoa and an undergrad degree in linguistics from New York University. And I'm really excited to be in conversation today with the amazing Kamakakēhau Fernandez.
Aloha mai kākou, Kamakakēhau Fernandez here, and I'm actually going to open with an oli or a chant that pays homage and gives greetings and welcomes everyone who's participating and all the viewers as well. O nauna I tahala me kalehua, he halele hua no ia na kanoe, o ka unoe no inei e li anei ho'i o ka hiki mai o kou hiki puno me ke aloha, aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. Velina mai me ke aloha o wau I hono o Kamakakēhau Fernandez mai ka moko aina o Maui e ana e wau ma ke ia aina, ka aina pula ka aina momona o ahu o kakuhi hewa. Greetings everyone and welcome. My name is Kamakakēhau Fernandez, originally from the island of Maui and currently here on the Gathering Isle, which is Oahu, land of Chief Kakuhi Hewa. And I find interest in this topic because, well, I'm basically on this journey with connecting myself, being an African American or an Africana, whichever way you want to describe it. For me living here in Hawaii, I've been just so immersed in Hawaiian culture. But as the years have gone on, I found the importance of connecting myself to my roots, my history, and it's just so amazing to know that there is so much rich Africana history here in Hawaii. So mahalo nui, music entertainer, educator in Hawaiian language, and an all-around good guy.
So we're here today to talk a little bit about the history of freedom seekers coming to Hawaii. And I think one of the important things for this conversation and for everyone listening to this is to understand Hawaii's history and relationship to the United States. So during the time period where the United States engaged in the practice of enslavement of African people, Hawaii was not a part of the United States. And Hawaii is currently occupied by the United States and is considered one of the 50 states, despite that history of independence. And I think one of the things that's very interesting and maybe interesting to people viewing this video is that particular connection point. We'll be talking about people like Anthony Allen and Betsy Stockton, who made their way to Hawaii in the 19th century today. But Kamaka, I'd love to just ask you, as somebody who is so rooted to Hawaii, What does it mean for you as a person of African descent to know that Hawaii was an ally to people seeking freedom and welcomed people here in the time of the kingdom?
Absolutely, that's a great question, and what it means to me really is just to know that first of all, we have that opportunity to learn about history, number one, and number two, to know that here in Hawaii it was not accepted. That racism, it was not accepted. So you know, Anthony Allen is a perfect example because he, worked alongside King Kamehameha the Great. And then before we get into that, though, it's just so ironic because my entire family, descends from Kamehameha the Great, and the whole understanding of hanai, as we say, or adoption. You know, Chief Naiole saved Kamehameha the Great, and through that came that practice of hanai, and then it just continued on with throughout families, throughout that history there, and then to just be a keiki hanai, an adopted child here in Hawaii, it's like it's amazing. If that didn't happen, if that time or point in history didn't happen, then who knows what the rest of the future would look like. But
thank you for sharing that little window into some of your genealogy and family story. I want to come back to hanai and the Naiole family as well, and your deep connection there to Kamehameha. But talking about Anthony Allen, I think it'd be interesting for us to begin with him. So he was born in 1774 in Schenectady, New York. And 1774 places his birth during the American colonial period, British colonial period. So he was born at a time when there was enslavement in a British colony. And it wasn't even America when he was first, when he first arrived on the scene. And by 1800, he had made his way into New England and onto ships and had liberated himself and traveled all around the world. So he was really a person of the world before he arrived in Hawaii in the early 19th century, either 1811 or 1810, we're not really sure. And ended up living a very vibrant life here, a decade at least before there was a sustained missionary presence here in Hawaii. And as you know, Kamaka, a lot of what we know about Anthony Allen comes from the accounts of missionaries at the time, encountering this Black man and being kind of surprised by the life he was living here. And I know that Anthony Allen's story is something that you've been learning about more recently. Are there some pieces of his story that really resonate for you, or at least cause you to wonder about what his life might have been like?
Well, I'm laughing because understanding the protocols of Hawaii, I could only imagine. I just wonder what kind of protocols did he have to go to, being appointed this, the caretaker or the advisor to King Kamehameha. I'm sure that required some, deep research and, like I said, protocols. So I'm wondering if he was chanting, if he had to learn, just like as people would for hula, there's a process that you go through. And so, but just the fact that he was the host, he was a host for many great balls and, the go-to person for entertainment. So that's really what, like, oh, wow, and to know that there's a particular school, Washington Middle School, where, it was a piece of land that he was blessed really by Kamehameha. So, these places that we just pass every day, I was kind of like, oh, wow, this is something that we should be paying attention to so that we can teach the next generation as well.
I like you, there's so many interesting things about his story that I think my own experience in Hawaii requires me to kind of project backwards in time. You're thinking about the protocol he must have gone through to come into the royal house and to be an advisor. And he was an entrepreneur and, had a hospital and a bowling alley and all kinds of things that he initiated here. And I also think you and I are connected. And I think the first time we ever met was about your Hawaiian language teaching. I think that was like our connection point, was both of our commitment to indigenous languages. And I think also about Anthony Allen coming here. And, at the time in the early 19th century in Hawaii, Hawaiian was the word on the street, right? Everyone was speaking Hawaiian. It would have been very strange for us to be having this conversation in English, as people expect these days. So I wonder, for me, one of the things that sticks out in the story of his life is how integrated into the community he was. He had a family here. There are accounts that he had 2 wives at the time, which would have been normal in Hawaiian culture. It shocked the missionaries a little bit when they met him. But in order to do many of the things that he did, he had to have been fluent, not only in the customs, but also in the language. And, connecting to Anthony Allen's story, but I'm also interested in your story because you're a real champion of Olalo Hawaii, the Hawaiian language. How do you think about, someone like Allen, who in the 19th century came here, started off in Schenectady, New York, but came here and was able to make a full life for himself, and it likely had to happen in the medium of Hawaiian language?
Yeah, that says a lot. I mean, it's very inspirational, especially being that entrepreneur myself, in music and just having the passion to educate and bring value to people. That's really what my life has resulted to. But taking it even further back, that's really where my mother started. If it wasn't for her taking that action, I mean, she was a service-driven leader as well in her community, food bank, and so with a lot of her traits, I think through my music, I ended up falling into that that journey as well. But just learning about Mr. Anthony Allen. I mean, and he married a Hawaiian woman, and actually I'm sure he had to learn some language, and he had kids later who had to also do that as well. But we continue to have more African American families out here, and so to be able to be a catalyst or a vessel that can continue to teach. I think that's really what it's all about, keeping that history alive.
Yeah, and I think we've kind of alluded to it a couple of times, but I think our viewers might be interested to know a little bit more about your story and how you've come to Hawaii. So you mentioned your mother, and you mentioned your Nai'ole Ohana and the long history and connection through those ali'i to Kamehameha the Great. But I can imagine, as we've talked about, and as we work on our film together, The Heart's Desire, sometimes our visual presentation raises questions for people who encounter us. I would say much like Anthony Allen probably surprised the missionaries who arrived in 1820, not expecting to see a free Black man, formerly enslaved, kind of living an abundant life here. But I wonder if you would just give us a little bit of your backstory, and also, especially tell us a little bit about your growing up on Maui, because I think Maui is an important part of this early history of Black people coming to Hawaii. We have folks like Betsy Stockton, who we might talk about a little bit later, who ended up on Maui as well. But would love to hear a little bit more about you and how Hawaii became your home.
Thank you. Well, so it started at 6 weeks. I mean, for me, I was 6 weeks old, and it just became the heart's desire, and the heart's desire. This is what Kamakakēhau translates. This is the dream of my makuahine, and my mother, she didn't know who she was getting. It was not in her plan. I want that child, but she wanted to have a child, and unfortunately, she wasn't able to have children naturally. And so adoption was her next path. And so by way of Catholic Charities, they flew her to Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas. And next thing you know, here I am, this little 6 weeks old baby coming to the islands of Hawaii, and specifically Maui. And Maui was actually the first capital before Oahu. So over there in Lahaina, where I believe Betsy also taught as well. But growing up here for me, you know, it was that season where it was kind of in that renaissance actually for Hawaii, where the language was just starting to, you know, gain traction again. Unfortunately, my mother and her siblings, they weren't enrolled in Kaiapuni or Hawaiian language immersion school. And so they made a vow amongst themselves to put their children. So through that education of Kaiapuni, that has really developed me to understand first and foremost the importance of storytelling and keeping connection and legacy. But I never felt excluded in any way. You know, it was like a big family, one big family of Hawaiian language, and we're all on the same mission to continue to keep the culture alive through language. And then it wasn't until my adult life where I started meeting, you know, having different experiences, traveling for music, and I would often get looks like, oh, you know, this brother looks a little different than what he's presenting. And I had to stick strong, you know, and realize and recognize that, you know, number one, what I know is what I know. And I'm just grateful to have this gift, to be able to connect with people. Music is such a powerful thing. And I think it's really just the energy that that's being exchanged. But, you know, in my adult life, I did have questions like, man, you know, or times my own reserves, you know, not feeling like I should be doing it, or am I, you know, cultural appropriation, or, you know, how do people view me, you know, all of that. I went through all of that, but I just continue to persevere and, you know, share what it is that I got.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story. You know, earlier you were using the Hawaiian word hanai, which is something that I think is common to us here. A lot of people will talk about, you know, hanai family, hanai a baby. And hanai is a really important experience and cultural practice for many people in Hawaii. I think, you know, we were alluding earlier to Anthony Allen and his marriage and family here, and being intertwined in a Hawaiian rooted genealogy through that process. I wonder, could you just say a little bit about what is hanai, maybe how it has impacted your life, but also you alluded earlier to the ali'i nai ole, caring for Kamehameha the Great. I don't know if you would consider that hanai, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll take it back in history first. So this term hanai basically is to raise, whether you are of family or of bloodline or not. It's where a family will take you in, and then you begin to you inherit the same things as the family would. And so in the case of Kamehameha Nui or Kamehameha the Great, you know, each island had their own chiefs, and so when they heard of Kamehameha being born, you know, the other chiefs, I mean, it's all about ruling, so they were trying to, you know, they're trying to get him, and so Chief Naiole ran him from one point of the island, I believe it was the southern point of the island, all the way up to Kohala, way in the mountains, and then there was a village, family village there, where he learned how to fish. He learned how to prepare himself for battle and war and all of that. So, you know, that is a form of hanai. And then we bring it back to today's time, where you got this child all the way from Little Rock, Arkansas, being raised, you know, and it was done the legal way, you know, through legal adoption, but this was a Hawaiian term. And usually the firstborn of each family at some times would be given to the grandparents to learn from the grandparents and stuff like that. So that's basically the gist of hanai.
Yeah, thank you. And you were raised on the island of Maui, the beautiful island of Maui. And you made a mention of Betsy Stockton being in Lahaina, and she is credited with starting a school there. So Betsy Stockton was a formerly enslaved woman who came to Hawaii in 1820, along with the mission that arrived from Connecticut. And we were chatting a little earlier about the kind of New England influence here in Hawaii, especially in tandem with the whaling history of this place. And Maui is also known now as a humpback whale sanctuary. Lahaina Luna School is there, which Betsy Stockton is credited with beginning as a school that was available to the children of the Maka'inaina, the common people. And so I wonder, you know, for you as a young Black Hawaiian child growing up on Maui, did you have access to those histories? Did you know about Betsy Stockton being there? Did you know about Black whalers that were in Lahaina? Did you have access to that?
I'm sure I had access to it, but I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I moved to Oahu in very recent years that I started learning about all of these wonderful, wonderful people. It was actually through Miles Jackson. You know, he's an author and a from professor at I believe it was HPU, and he approached me, and you know, this kid growing up here, I'm just like, oh wow, he finds interest in me. He wants to know about my story. Why, you know? And then I found out he wrote this book about African Americans in Hawaii, and so. I feel that this was meant to be, and I'm going to try and not get emotional because I mean, I think this is something that we need. We need this in our world. We need these kind of connections. We need people to know that, you know, even that they have a place, you know, even though it may not be their own personal homeland. Just to be able to connect spirit to spirit, heart to heart. As we say in Hawaiian, aloha he alo, yeah, face to face. These are things that I think are important for us going through our journeys. Yeah, sorry.
No, I think you know, your experience of emotion, I think, really points to how crucial this conversation is that we're having today. You know, if we project ourselves back a couple of centuries and imagine Black people who were coming to Hawaii, the fact that they were welcomed here, that they were free, that they had opportunities to give back, you know, to the community they found themselves in, is actually really remarkable, considering what these folks were fleeing. You know, we mentioned two people, Anthony Allen and Betsy Stockton, who both had been born as children into enslavement. And to imagine what, you know, what a different life and world that was for them, that was predetermined for them, and that they could have lived their entire lives in enslavement. But instead, through, you know, their different histories and actions, came to this place, and then upon being here, decided to be a part of this place and this community in the ways that they did. I think that's really a question for many of us who are the descendants of enslaved people in the African diaspora. I think that's a question, like, where can you be and where can you be safe? And for some of those folks, Hawaii was an answer. It doesn't mean Hawaii is perfect to this day. And I think there's a lot of challenges that have come with the American presence in Hawaii. Certainly the welcome that someone like Anthony Allen experienced in the early 19th century, where he was welcomed into the court, wasn't the Hawaii that, you know, welcomed people 10 years ago, or is dealing with some of the kind of rise in anti-Black racism that we're experiencing in the last few years. But it is, I think, a really beautiful historical moment for us to recall and to know that not only did Hawaii just kind of allow these folks to be here, but that there were laws in place, even as the kingdom had a relationship with the United States. As you know, I'm sure that the Constitution of 1852 in Hawaii, though Hawaii had a relationship with the United States diplomatically, the Constitution enshrined that not only would people be free here and that there would be no enslavement in the same kind of model that happened in the United States and elsewhere, but that if you got here, you would be free. and that there was an opportunity to be a full citizen and a full participant in the social, cultural, economic life of the kingdom. And that's actually a really amazing kind of assertion of Hawaii's sovereignty at the time, and also the intentions of the government and the elite at that time as well. And I just wonder, what do you think about that? I think we come back to that 1852 Constitution because there were so many changes that happened after that, and that also led us up to the overthrow and the coup against the Queen in 1893. But knowing that the government of Hawaii didn't just allow people like Anthony Allen and Betsy Stockton to come here, but said, once you get here, we will protect your rights as humans. What does that mean for you as somebody who has been raised here in Hawaii?
Yeah, that means a lot. I mean, it's very powerful because I mean, I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing, or I just would imagine having the wonderful family that I have had that not been put into consideration. But also the words that keep coming back to me is it gives that opportunity to flip the script in a way and start anew, you know. And when you learn, well, Hawaii is known to be the aloha state, and it's not something to be taken for granted, but it's really a way of being. And so when you have, you know, the connection to spirit, through akua, also to the connection to, you know, all of these wonderful scholars that teach us how to be pono, how to be right. You know, you can kind of implement that into your life and become proactive instead of reactive.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think, you know, just to kind of round out that thought, for folks outside of Hawaii, not knowing much of the history here, especially the history post 1893 to the present, sometimes it can be surprising to know just how much has changed and how much has been protected through the sheer will of people like you and your ohana. And so, you know, people like you make Hawaii great, and I'm really grateful to be able to chat with you this afternoon. Mahalo.
The pleasure is also mine. I mean, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished as well, because I mean, being a person coming, you know, from you know, the mainland, as we say, and then, you know, taking on that reins of starting something and opening an opportunity for good people to connect culturally. That's huge, and you got to have a lot of mana, as we say, mana wahine no Hawaii. So powerful women, and we need it. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Run, Mary, run. Run, Martha, run. Run, Mary, run, I say. You've got a right to the tree of life. You've got a right to the tree of life, yeah. Run, Mary, run. Run, Martha, run. Run, Mary, run, I say. You've got a right to the tree of life. You've got a right to the tree of life, yeah. Run, Mary, run. Run, Martha, run. Run, Mary, run, I say. You've got a right to the tree of life. You've got a right to the tree of life, yeah.